Good afternoon and happy Tuesday. It is the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Richie. On today's show, we're going to be hitting on the Week 18 NFL rundown, kind of speak on how everything ultimately shaked out. We're going to have a look ahead to Super Wildcard Weekend. We're going to talk about a potential second baseman possibly making Yankee Stadium his new address, his new stadium, his new team. We're talking about Luis Arraez, one of the best pure hitters in today's MLB. We'll find out ultimately if that comes to fruition. I'm going to weigh in on whether or not I like that potential addition for the New York Yankees. Also, on today's show, I'm going to be speaking on the firing of Gerard Mayo and why I think the New England Patriots honestly just kind of did him dirty. Not pleased with what went down there. I think as a former player, you would have got a little more benefit of the doubt. And I don't really want to push the envelope, but I'm just going to say what I think. Does anybody notice a trend in the NFL how African American African American head coaches are more susceptible, more prone to getting fired a lot quicker than their peers? I don't know if there's something to that, but I don't always believe in coincidences. Bottom line is that Gerard Mayo had these guys playing hard. They beat the Buffalo Bills, ultimately fall to the number 4 pick, because going into that game, they would have been the number 1 pick. But if you watch any of the Patriots games this year, there definitely wasn't a lack of effort on this particular team. And I'm disappointed. There's a former player in the Bill Belichick regime. A former player in the Bill Belichick regime that ultimately becomes the next head coach in some metrics suggested by former coach Bill Belichick, who's now with the UNC Tar Heels. It's just not a good look. I don't know what this man was supposed to accomplish in one short season, and I don't know what the expectation level was considering all the player turnover. This is not the Patriot dynasty. This is a complete rebuild from the ground up. Quarterback Drake May got his feet wet this season. Mixed results. Ultimately, I think he's not a bad quarterback all in all. Where do I think the Patriots go from here? Potentially Mike Vrabel, but I would be leery if that's their main target, considering the relationship with Bears GM Ryan Poles with Mike Vrabel. I think the Bears have a much better chance of landing Vrabel than the Patriots do, but I'm disappointed. I don't understand an honest explanation why this man gets fired in one short year. And all I could say is that I hope he catches on with a new team soon. But yet again, I'm not going to ignore this. African American coaches get canned a little too quickly compared to their peers. I'm just going to say it. You don't have to be a huge investigator to see this, and it's disappointing. It truly is disappointing. Moving it along, keeping it in the Northeast, New York Football Giants choosing to keep this regime intact. 3-14 season. However, Brian Dable and Joe Shane are going to come back and run it back again. New York Giants will be picking third by virtue of that Patriot loss. They did jump the Patriots. Patriot win, I should say, which essentially is a loss, depending on how you look at it. Giants are picking third. They would have picked first if they didn't beat the Colts a couple of weeks ago. In front of them, you got the Tennessee Titans and the Cleveland Browns picking. One would think that at least one of those teams would be in the market for a quarterback. I believe the Tennessee Titans, good possibility. They hone in on Cam Ward of the Miami Hurricanes. I believe that he may very well be going there. Now, in Cleveland's case, this is a little more interesting. The Browns paid big time money to Deshaun Watson. That's been nothing short of a dumpster fire, that whole situation. And now Deshaun Watson had a setback today. Shout out Mike Zappi for sharing that with me. I was actually on the road hearing that, speaking off air with one of my co-hosts. And Zappi made mention to me that there could be a setback where Deshaun could miss substantial time this season as well, the new season next year. So are the Browns in the market for a quarterback? And I have a hard time believing that primetime Deion Sanders would be okay with his son Shador going to Cleveland, considering their bad track record with developing quarterbacks and just honestly having a good winning culture. I think Kevin Stefanski for a little while had something cooking there, but Cleveland is not the destination much desired by many pro athletes for a litany of reasons, truly a litany of reasons, at least not in football. I think in baseball, it might be a little more attractive. They happen to have the best team in the Eastern Conference right now in the NBA, but Cleveland not always the most sexy destination. And even LeBron James did indeed leave that place twice. So we'll see which direction the Browns go in, but there is the potential that they too could go defense, maybe take a Travis Hunter, a Will Johnson, possibly pass rushing specialist at a Penn State, Abdul Carter. There's a lot of ways that this could play. That leaves the 3 pick with the New York Giants. Do they go Shador right there? Do they trade back? Do they address their needs in a different area? I have said on the show numerous times that I felt that if the Giants could get a quarterback that is not that far behind Shador or Cam, given that this is a weaker quarterback draft class than last year, I would consider going corner, going O-line, or going pass rusher. Because if anybody thinks that Kayvon Thibodeau and his starting job should be safe, then they haven't been watching a lot of Giants football this year. Brian Burns in 1 year has proven that he is the alpha dog of the pass rushers of those two. I like Kayvon, but having said that, with Azeez Ojulari entering free agency and likely signing elsewhere, I don't think Kayvon should be guaranteed a starting job coming into this season. You know, when you consider where they drafted him, the production just hasn't been there for as high as he wants. And then if you consider that Evan Neal was 2 picks after him, you can make an honest case that Joe Shane really messed up that first round that year. I like Kayvon, but I think the Giants could do better at that position. Abdul Carter is better. It's going to be interesting. And I got to say to myself, how long does this regime have in East Rutherford, New Jersey? One thing I'll say is if this team come Halloween, maybe come Turkey Day next year, if they're sitting on 2-3 wins, there's a distinct possibility that the plug could be pulled on the regime. It's not common that John Mara will fire people during the season. It has happened going back to Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese, but that was awfully late in the season, where Steve Spagnuolo took over as interim head coach. Perhaps the Giants should have considered giving Steve his second go-around as a full-time head coach. He's doing wonderful things with the Kansas City Chiefs as their DC. But that's where I stand on it. Quinn Ewers, assuming he enters the draft, once again, shout out Mike Zappi. We were talking off air. Quinn might go back to college. He has a deal set in place roughly around $6 million to stay in college. And remember, these kids make money now in college. They don't have to run to the NFL if their draft stock isn't as high as it once was. Got a comment coming in. Just give me a moment. Daniel Nunez. How you doing, bro? Good to see you here. I'm ready for the playoffs, man. Playoffs? I'm a Giants fan, bro. What's that? Let's go Eagles beat the Cheeseheads. Yeah, we're going to hit on that, Nunez. I'm actually not making my permanent picks today, but I do want to do a look ahead. I'm going to start with the rundown first, and then we're going to do a look ahead, but definitely going to touch on your Eagles in a game that I think is very favorable. A rematch of Week 1, a game that was played in Brazil between the Cheeseheads and the Philly Cheesesteaks. Yeah, it's a lot of dairy going on. All right. Takeaways from Week 18. Let's go. Buffalo Bills kind of played it cool. No reason to win. Nothing to play for. New England Patriots get the dub there. Miami Dolphins, very disappointing finish to their season as they dropped the ball in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Even if they would have won, they still would have needed a Denver loss. The Denver Broncos crushed the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Kansas City Chiefs showed up to get crushed as they benched everybody. And I think that was a direct indication that they did not want Joe Burrow and co. in the playoffs. The Cincinnati Bengals, I've kind of playfully said it all year long, the best 4-8 team, the best 5-8, the 6-8 team in the history of this league. That offense was something special. But unfortunately, they lost too many games early on that stood out. And ultimately, they were not able to get the tiebreakers to get in. I'm disappointed because I love to see the best quarterbacks in the league shine in the playoffs. But they have something to worry about in terms of T. Higgins. Are they going to be able to make it right to keep him? Jamar Chase is going to be looking for a massive contract. Joe Burrow has said that he's looking to do what he has to do to keep that trio together, which means that he will alter his contract for the betterment of the team. Don't expect Jamar to do that, though. That man wants to get paid, and he is going to get paid, and he's one of the best receivers in all of football. So I get it. As some of you know, I had a little bit of a crazy day yesterday, but I spoke erroneously. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not hosting the Minnesota Vikings next week. Minnesota, after their loss to the Detroit Lions, is actually headed to Los Angeles. I think that I just kind of penciled them in as such. But no, that's not the case this year. But yeah, Tampa winning the South yet again. And to not my surprise, I picked them in the preseason. However, during the course of the year, I do think the Atlanta Falcons missed a golden opportunity. And, you know, they still Tampa lost. Tampa had a little bit of a scare, but came back and defeated the New Orleans Saints. And the NFC is going to be interesting, guys. The NFC is going to be very interesting. So the Detroit Lions, who I said on my IG video, made a liar out of me, really crushed the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota looks like they're leaning towards paying Sam Darnold the big money, which could potentially make quarterback J.J. McCarthy available. This is interesting. This is worth considering, going back to my G-Men for a second, because the Giants were interested in J.J. McCarthy. They did show moderate interest in him last year in the draft, ultimately chose Malik Neighbors. But if Sam Darnold's going to be getting the big money after this 14-win campaign, McCarthy might be available. So maybe, just maybe, the Giants' quarterback of the future was in last year's draft. He is still yet to take an NFL snap, 2 knee procedures, won a national title with the University of Michigan last year. And this is a guy that I do believe actually does fit Brian Dable's system. So if the Giants can set themselves up in a position where they don't have to come off their first-round pick this year, which I highly doubt, considering that McCarthy hasn't even played it down yet, I think that might actually make some sense. Oh, back to the NFL playoffs here. We're gonna talk some wild card weekend. Washington Commanders are going to be taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Excuse me. Let me just post this up for a second. My picks for the playoffs. AFC Bills, Steelers, Chargers. In the NFC, Eagles, Rams, Commanders. Yeah, Nunez, I got to tell you, I like the Rams at home off my initial look at this. It's tough when you go from being the potential 1 seed and getting a bye and everything else, and now you don't even get a home game out of this thing. Some people feel the NFL needs to fix this, where winning your division should only guarantee you a playoff berth, but not get you into a home game. I have mixed feelings on it because I think winning your division has to mean something. I know that sometimes certain divisions are top heavy. You got the Steelers beating the Ravens. I got to disagree with you there because I'll be honest, I don't like and potential soon to be 3-time MVP Lamar Jackson's playing some of his best football. I am leaning towards picking the Ravens there, but yet again, this is not the prediction show, just kind of saying where I feel at the moment. You've got the Commanders winning. That's going to be a good game. I will say this, the Tampa defense is not as imposing as they have been in previous years. So it wouldn't blow my mind if the Commanders were to win the game. Philadelphia Eagles, it's the perfect matchup at the perfect time for the Eagles right now. You know, if we go back to week 1 when you guys played them in Brazil, I personally think the Packers outplayed you. But the Packers left a couple of plays out there where they did not finish with sixes. This is going to be a different Eagle team as well as a different Packer team. You got to take into consideration that was Saquon Barkley's very first game with the Eagles. He had a blow-up game. Jalen Hurts had a rough day with turnovers in that week 1 matchup. That's like another lifetime ago. As the Packers go, similar to that game, Jordan Love got injured. Jordan Love is banged up right now. I think with Jordan Love, the Packers present more challenges to the Eagles. I like Malik Willis, but I don't like him to go on the road and win a playoff game if that's the situation. I actually think out of all these wild card games, the Eagles are probably the most obvious winner. Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos, that's not going to be an easy game for Buffalo, man. Denver's got one of the best defenses in all of professional football. And, you know, Patrick Surtain is a bona fide lockdown guy. Josh Allen is going to have to make a lot happen with his feet in that game. And I think Buffalo might have to rely on the running game. And hopefully, you know, James Cook could get things going. I think Buffalo will or should win the game, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I really don't think it's going to be easy. You think Saquon's going to be pissed because he didn't get to play to break the record? I could be wrong about this. I don't think Saquon gave a damn about the record. I think Saquon proved in that first Giant game, his first time back to MetLife Stadium, when he could have had a career best in that game and he chose to let some of the other guys get some action. I think it proved the true unselfishness in the kind of character that Saquon is, that he really doesn't give two damns about stats. I think he just wants wins. And when you consider that outside of 2022, there wasn't a lot of winning going on with my New York Giants and with Saquon, I think he's just happy to be in a position to win a championship. But one way or the other, the bottom line is that if you look at Saquon Barkley's games against the Green Bay Packers in his career, he has performed very well. The game in England in 22 as a member of the Giants, he had a very good game. Monday Night Football, the Tommy DeVito game, if you take away Saquon tripping over the field monster, the turf monster, I should say, and thinking it was somebody that tackled him, Saquon made a mental error and left the football. Almost cost the Giants the game. DeVito led the Giants down the field for the game winner. Point to be made here, and going back to week 1 in Brazil, Saquon has had some blow-up games against the Packers, and I have no reason to believe that that will be any different here. I think the only way the Packers win this game, there's a couple of ways. Number one, you got to keep the Eagles' offense off the field, and that's easier said than done. Jordan Love has to take pristine care of the football if he even plays. If he even plays. Whoever the quarterback is of the Packers, they have to be able to sustain drives, and you're not going to beat the Eagles kicking field goals. You gotta put the ball in the end zone. And I'm not convinced that the Green Bay Packers right now are in the best place to do that. The Christian Watson injury sucks. Then you got Jaden Reed, who I really like as a ball player, but he's been quiet lately. I just think things are not lining up the right way for the Packers to win this kind of football game. I think the Packers really screwed themselves down the stretch. And if we're being honest, they just have not played their best football down the stretch. But way too early Super Bowl prediction. Um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Buffalo and Philly. That is my genuine Super Bowl prediction. And you know I'm being unbiased because I can't stand the Eagles. But I refuse to ignore the excellence that they have achieved this year as a unit. You have you know, most definite first ballot Hall of Famer Jason Kelsey hanging it up a year ago. They have not missed a beat on the brotherly shove or in any other metric of their passing or their rushing in terms of blocking. They have just been on point. Saquon has had a phenomenal season. Truly a phenomenal season. Looks like he has like just a new energy to him. Oh, no question. He wants to win, bro. His only taste of the playoffs was a loss in Lincoln Financial Field. And he didn't have a great game the previous week against the Vikings that year. That was actually the Daniel Jones show. Undeniably the best game Daniel Jones ever played as a pro. Oddly enough, Jones is with the Vikings now, so you figure that out. Got to, bro. Always got to speak the truth. I still hope you lose. I'm going to keep it a buck, bro. I hope you guys lose this week. Crazier things have happened. But it would be quite the stretch for the Green Bay Packers for 2 consecutive years to win as a 7 seed in round 1. That's quite a stretch. And you guys right now are a much better team than the Dallas Cowboys were last year as the 2 seed. And that's also unbiased because I don't like either one of y'all. And, I will be rooting for the Packers. That is my late father's favorite team. I do tend to pull for the Packers unless if it directly negatively will affect the New York Giants, whether like in honor of my late father, I do support the Packers when it doesn't affect my beloved New York Giants. Always, bro. Always. You know what it is, man. Man, you still licking my chops from your Dodgers kicking our ass. Still licking my wounds, bro. Still licking my wounds. We're gonna move this over to baseball for a second. Luis Arraez could be the new second baseman in the BX Borough, New York Yankees. This is a player that I want on my team. I understand that he has not the best errors metric. He doesn't make too many errors. But one of the better contact hitters in today's MLB and in some metrics of his game does remind me of the late, great Tony Gwynn. He would really solidify this Yankees lineup because while even with no longer Juan Soto being a part of things, the New York Yankees still have a great deal of guys that can hit the ball out of the park. Between Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, and I do think Paul Goldschmidt is due for a bust-out year, even at 37 years old in that ballpark. Arraez is a contact hitter. He sprays the ball to all fields, and I think he would be a wonderful addition to the New York Yankees. There will be some times of frustration if the errors don't get better, but I do think he's a better ball player than Gleyber Torres. And I think from the mental side of things, the baseball acumen side of things, I do think he's better than Gleyber Torres. So I would welcome that if the Yankees are able to make it happen. That would keep his base. And I think it puts the Yankees in a position to run it back and get back to the World Series, potentially against your Dodgers, Nunez, or against another team. The National League has some great teams. Philadelphia Phillies are a very dangerous team, as are the Atlanta Braves. New York Mets, great offense. I still think they need more pitching, so we'll see how that goes. My other New York team that I'm going to speak on, my New York Knicks, after a 9-game winning streak, now nursing a 3-game losing streak. Karl Anthony Towns did not play against Orlando. Orlando was due to beat the Knicks. The Knicks have had their number this year. But I'm not worried about the loss. I'm not worried about the losing streak. But I am worried about the way Tom Thibodeau is beating the shit out of these guys. I understand that, it's hard for old dogs to learn new tricks. But if Tom Thibodeau does not figure out a way to give some of these guys much needed rest, it's going to be a very similar result to what we saw last year in the playoffs when the Knicks broke down at the worst possible time against the Indiana Pacers, a team that they were better than. And this is a golden opportunity for the Knicks. The Knicks have, in my opinion, from a talent level, closed the gap on the defending world champion Boston Celtics. And while I have to praise the Cleveland Cavaliers for what they have done in the early going of the season, the Knicks have had a good deal of success against Cleveland the last couple of years. And, Donovan Mitchell, who grew up a Knicks fan, who is the best player in Cleveland, I tend to believe that he struggles against the Knicks more than he succeeds. And I'll be honest, not having that extra bench player that, right now, the way the rotation is laid out is hurting the Knicks to a level. And I will be honest, this is where you miss Dante DiVincenzo a little bit. We got Karl Anthony Towns, who, in my opinion, is undeniably the best big man we've had since the legendary Patrick Ewing. And in between those two, somewhere in between, you have to make a mention of Marcus Camby and Tyson Chandler. But the Knicks, still one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. You got to take it easy with Cat. Give him time to heal up. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But Tom Thibodeau has got to do better with these minutes, man. He's killing these guys. He's really killing them. Daniel Nunez would comment, and it's like that with my late dad, man. I have to root for Steelers. Nunez, I already knew what time it was because I remember the first time we ever spoke. We spoke about our late fathers. And, oddly enough, the last Packers Super Bowl was actually against your father's Steelers. But rest in peace to your dad. And I get it, bro. Like, there's certain things. and we definitely, it's how it is. Like in my case, the infamous boat trip that the Giants still have not completely exercised that demon on. That was the last time the Packers and Giants played a meaningful football game in my father's lifetime. So, in that metric of looking at it, I guess I have to be okay with the ass whooping. Well, it doesn't matter if I'm okay with it. It still happened. Victor Cruz, Odell Beckham Jr. just didn't show up. Bottom line, left Eli Manning hanging out to dry in that one. And Aaron Rodgers, the master of the Hail Mary, made the Giants pay at halftime. And it was kind of a small measure of revenge when you revisit the Eli Hail Mary to Hakeem Nicks some years earlier in the Giants Super Bowl run. Because I remember when Nicks caught that ball in Lambeau, you just heard like letting the air out of a balloon. Lambeau was quiet. And the Giants had definitely had some big wins over Green Bay during that era. And Nunez, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, where the hell's he going, man? Where is Aaron Rodgers going to go, bro? He's losing options. My mom's whispering in the corner here, saying that he's going to stay with the Jets. I'm visiting mom here, hanging out the house. Wanted to see her face. But more so than that, my dumb ass locked myself out of my house because I was I was driving my girl's car all week and forgot to switch over the keys. So, Jen, if you're watching, you have both keys to the house, babe. But no bigs. I'm here with Mom Dukes, and that's why I give Mom a spare key for moments like these. But I personally think that Aaron Rodgers is 50-50 to completely hang it up. The only reason why I can't see AR8, maybe AR12 again, hanging it up like that is because his ego's too swollen. I just can't see him giving up like that. He's too stubborn of an athlete, but the God's honest truth is there's only a couple of destinations that make sense. And two off the top of my head would be the New York Giants. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. It actually makes sense. Staying with the Jets, but I think the Jets have had enough of him. He's not going to Cleveland. Maybe Vegas, even if they draft a Shador, maybe sit Shador for a year, kind of like KC did with Mahomes. I guess you could possibly do that. But that's where I'm at with that, man. But yeah, my way too early Super Bowl prediction, and I'm sure this could be altered, is the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. And as much as it pains me to say this, I think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I really mean that. And like I said, I'm a devout Giants fan. I call it like I see it, but it's my responsibility to call things down the middle on this show, and that is just my genuine opinion. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to complete the NFC East dominance of the Buffalo Bills, and if that does come to fruition, the Bills would literally lose to every NFC East team in the big game. Which prior to that was the Redskins and the Giants. The Giants started that 4 in a row losing streak for the Bills, and truthfully, the first Super Bowl was the only Super Bowl that the Bills actually could have or should have won. Scott Norwood, lives in infamy. But it's unfortunate. He was a great kicker. And shouts out to the great Bills fans, man. They gave those guys a parade coming home. Some of the best fans in the world. Now Tyler Bass is their kicker, and, he had quite the heartbreaking miss last year. But I do think that this is the year that the Bills could beat the Chiefs. They did get smacked around early in the year by the Ravens. But this Josh Allen, this particular year, just has a different look to him. And I do think the Bills will ultimately get to the Super Bowl. 10-0, well, if the Eagles get there, I will be rooting for the AFC. So let me just make that clear now. Nunez, as always, I appreciate you contributing to the show. Got to get you on a show. Got to get you back on the mics. Definitely in the near future. It'll be a lot of fun. Until next time, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this day. And one final time, I want to thank everyone for reaching out to me yesterday. As many of you might know by now, my girl and my mother were both in different hospitals yesterday for various reasons, but it was a little scary, and it just brings everything and slows everything down and kind of shines a light and hones in on what is so very important, which of course is family. But I am super thankful that they are doing well today. Also thankful for some things that turned in good favor with people that I know, people that I care about. And I'm just happy that they're doing better with a couple of things that they were going through that were rather serious. Until next time, I am Richie. Have a great day.